I have like sort of two levels of sort of reaction to it. On one level, I love all of these sort of connected sensors, right? I mean, whether it's refrigerators, eyeballs, I don't know, whatever, something gross and biological, whatever. I think it's all great, right? I mean, we're tracking more data, and potentially it's got leads to better outcomes. I mean, less food spoilage, healthier humans, whatever the case may be. And I think that's great. We're going to see a lot more of it because the stuff's getting so cheap and ubiquitous. On the other hand, however, I think this, I was earlier sort of joking, this was kind of like Nest for the eyes. Like if Nest terrified you having Google own it, because now they're going to know what you're doing in your house and when you're there and when you're not, how do you feel about having Google in your eyes? I mean, because you've got a sensor and everything else, there's the potential for a lot of data to flow back. Obviously, that's not going to happen, we hope. But what I think all of this is going to precipitate is a way long overdue discussion about what fundamental rights we have in terms of data privacy. And it's not just this one-off stuff of maybe Google will protect me for now and then it won't. I think we're finally going to get some real standards, because this kind of stuff just can't go on, right? I mean, you just can't, now you're getting into health standards and issues related to HIPAA and other things. So I think this is going to precipitate a great discussion and finally probably some legislation protecting us with respect to our own data. And that may turn out to be the most valuable part of all of this.
It's funny you mention this, Paul, because obviously there's this sort of utopian idea that sensors that might be either in or on our bodies will know when we're about to have a heart attack before we even have one, and then the ambulance will just pull up next to us on the street. And that, on the one hand, is great. On the other hand, and not that they're necessarily the worst people in the world, but maybe, like if, say, United Health has access to all of that data, are they going to jack up my rate and do other things with that? So it starts to get complicated. And I think your point
implications are a little crazy and creepy.
And you need to have the legal and regulatory structure beyond just the tech.
Yeah, and you know what, and even further, there's a reason why, you get yanked into ER for an EKG. It's not like they slap one on and then leave you alone, right? I mean, they track the data for a while because there's so many sort of oscillations in human data over the course of a 24-hour day or a week or a month that you get all kinds of false positives thrown off. In many ways, the best thing for us is not continuous tracking of our data, because humans get a little wacky whenever we see too much information about what's going on outside of our body, and you become, the great word, the cyberchondriacs, right? We immediately start Googling, I'm sweating, and my eyes feel funny, what have I got, tropical disease, this kind of thing. So I think there's a risk in all of this that when you give people a continuous flow of data, they feel this compulsion to act on it, and I think that's equally dangerous in many ways.
I'm not sure how I feel about Google or any company knowing my body chemistry as it's happening.
Right.
But Paul, we talked a bit about Calico, this health company that Google has basically started, very secretive. Nobody knows the real things they're working on, but sort of the broad idea is, how do we cure death? How do we cure things like aging, maybe cancer? And we've been having a conversation all week long about, is Google looking a lot more innovative than everybody else right now? What do you think about what Google should be doing? I mean, are they right to be going down all of these different paths, trying to own the future, even though we don't know what the future looks like? And does that leave other companies behind or not?
No, I think that's exactly the right question, and I think they are. I think they're arguably, I saw Walter Isaacson make this point the other day, the author of the Steve Jobs biography, that, that Google's out innovating Apple in a fairly dramatic fashion, and I think that's probably true. The question, however, is what are the implications for shareholders? I mean, this is sort of an investor class discussion as an ex-analyst. I mean, that's the way I look at it, and the reality is almost everything they're monkeying about with right now has zero near-term positive implications for the stock, and many of them probably have negative implications because they're going to get wrapped up in regulatory stuff. They may get distracted into healthcare issues, decide this foray wasn't worth it. So I think it's laudable and wonderful and incredibly Silicon Valley innovative, but I think most of this is neutral at best and possibly even negative with respect to Google as an investment.
I feel like if I were an investor, I might be asking the question, okay, well, that's all well and good, but how many people in your company are still working on something like, I don't know, search? Just because that seems to be paying the bills, right? I mean, there is this concern like, yeah, you can be Bell Labs and IBM Research and all these other things, but you also have to be a going business.
Right. I mean, and I think these are the kind of question that investors are increasingly asking, and we saw this happen with Microsoft when they went into this sort of outsized R&D spending mode. It happened way back in the days of AT&T Bell Labs, and we're a lot more suspicious of this sort of thing now. We only give you so much rope before we say what are the implications in terms of products over the next 4, 8, 12 quarters, and after that, I mean, as investors, people get very intemperate and start getting really, really grouchy about it. One thing to do it with Sergey, Larry, or Eric's own capital. It's something else to do it with shareholder capital in the context of the company. So I'm uneasy about it all. I just love the innovation because it's cool.